Hello and welcome to the Dogs Code podcast. This is a show about the wonderful world of Dachshunds, their quirky ways and some golden nuggets for owners along the way. I'll be sharing my thoughts and experience. I'm your host, Katie Saywell, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome. So, Nick, I'm just going to introduce you so our listeners know who you are that I'm speaking to, because some will be watching back on video and some will be listening on a podcast. So today I'm absolutely thrilled, Nick, to have you here. So, Nick Thompson, you're a vet, you've got over 25 years of experience championing
Well,
species.
closer to 35, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Is it actually? Wow. I
I
was that.
qualified. So I went to Edinburgh in 86 and I qualified in 92. So
Wow.
that just put it in perspective.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I'm
Okay.
very old. I'm very old.
Well, you don't look it.
Bless you.
Maybe some good lighting going off, or who knows?
That's right. That's why I've been delighted.
So you've got a whole wealth of background and knowledge around international raw feeding. You've led some groundbreaking surveys, organised international conferences, and consulted for leading raw pet food companies across Europe as well. And yeah, I mean, uh, I kind of feel like I'm stealing your limelight a little bit. So um, I'm going to get you to tell our listeners a bit about yourself, who Nick is, and
Sure.
what it is that you do, because I think you'll probably do it more justice than I will.
Bless you. I'm transfixed with the idea of species appropriate nutrition, which is a posh way of saying we should feed dogs like dogs. You know, if you start feeding horses on steak, you're going to run into problems. Equally, you know, vegetarian dog food, vegan dog food, bad idea. Humans, if you want to be vegan, great, good for you. Well, you know, that is your choice. But I think to bring that to dogs is really bad idea. So a species appropriate diet. So you've got to think, therefore, is what have dogs been eating for the last 45 million years? And the answer is pretty much anything that they can get you know, lay their teeth on. So that will be fresh kill carcasses, that will be carrion, old, you know, rotting meat out in the outback somewhere that something else has brought down. It will be intestinal contents. It will be berries when they're around. It will be, you know, the odd root, occasionally, possibly. Um, it will be, you know, mice and rats and frogs and lizards and you name it. It'll also include feces, herbivore feces. It's really good. You know, people come to me and say, "Oh my God, my dog's eating horse poo or sheep poo or cow poo or something like that." And I say, "It's great. It's, you know, it's a fantastic probiotic, and they have been eating it, and prebiotic, and they have been eating it for 45 million years. You know, if you're a starving wolf, you don't turn your nose up at anything whatsoever. And that's fundamentally where we're coming from with this stuff.
Good. I mean, I'm glad I'm not a wolf, that's for sure. So tell us about the holistic vet. How did that all start?
How did that start? That's an interesting question. I don't get asked that very often, actually. So I was in practice. So I started my career in East Yorkshire, just in a little village called Beeford, just south of what's it, Bridlington. Yeah, it's about
I
nine
know
miles south
Bridlington,
of
yeah.
Bridlington. Ah, you know Brid, great. So that's where I started, and it was a pig practice which had a small animal practice attached. So this is really good. So I was seeing cows and loads of pigs, and I was seeing cats and dogs, and so I really learned. I just did it because it was a great job, but what happened was I really learned a lot about preventative medicine and how preventing disease is so much more powerful than treating disease. Yeah, when you take your dog to the vet, it's like, dog's got this, please will you fix it?
Mhm.
Okay, that's reactionary medicine. But what we were doing with the pigs, because it's much more economic to keep them healthy. Okay, obviously you're going to eat them at the end of the day, unfortunately, but that's the way things are. Um, but if you can prevent disease coming along
Mhm.
by looking at nutrition and their environment and socialization and all this stuff, then for the farmer you save, you know, loads of money. You have much more healthy, happy pigs. You get the meat quality is improved and what have you. So unbeknownst to me, I learned an awful lot about preventative medicine, which is kind of what I do now. This is what I do on a daily basis these days, which is great. You know, fixing legs and sewing up dogs is great. I really enjoy that stuff. But preventing disease, talking to people about nutrition all day long is actually just fabulous. You know, it's really, really enjoyable. So I've done a couple of videos. One is called Raw Feeding, the Basics, and the other one is called Bones and How to Feed Them. And if you go to the website, which is holisticvet.co.uk, that's holisticvet.co.uk, they're there on the homepage. You're welcome to jump into those. And there are other freebie YouTube videos there on the website for people to enjoy.
Awesome. Yeah. And hopefully our listeners will go and have a look and watch and learn some new stuff from there as well.
Well, we
Um,
like it.
I mean, that's great. I mean, I just made the assumption that you were from down south opposed to being from up north, but obviously in practice up north.
Well, yeah, I was. Well, I qualified from Edinburgh in '92, like I say,
Mm,
and then my first job, about 18 months or so, was in Beeford, and then I moved to Helmsley, into the Dales. The practice was called Four Dales Veterinary Practice, and so I was there for about 18 months, 2 years or so, and then um, no, it was actually at the first practice I started looking into homeopathy.
okay.
Okay, and then I took that teaching to Helmsley, and then in Helmsley, I just kind of thought, am I going to be a conventional vet who does a
Hmm.
bit of alternative medicine here and there, you know, a bit wishy-washy, or am I going to nail my colours to the mast and say, right, this is it, this is what I'm going to do? So I decided to actually go for it and to take a new direction in my career. And so I moved down to Chichester on the south coast
Hmm.
and worked with a guy called Mark Elliott, a brilliant homeopath and general clinician at his practice down in Chichester. And so we worked together for 4 years, and then I thought, this is, you know, absolutely great. I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to start my own practice, and so that's where I started holisticvet.co.uk, and that was in 1999. And so we are in our 26th year now, so which is absolutely unbelievable. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. I've been in practice in my own practice for 26 years, and it's been a ride. It's been, you know, just every day, as they say, every day is a school day. Yeah, we're just learning
Absolutely.
new stuff and meeting amazing people all around the world these days. In end of March, the Raw Pet Medics, we do a video, like a podcast on Facebook, a Facebook Live, every Tuesday, 7 p.m. UK time. So this is Connor Brady, Brendan Clark, and myself, and we go online for 45 minutes. It's a freebie. Anybody can join, and we talk about food, nutrition, health, disease, therapeutics. You know, anything in that sphere. Mainly in the raw food realm, but really any type of nutrition, and that's fantastic. So we've been doing that for the last 4 years, and that's really stimulating because you got to you know you're going on the internet with these two other guys and you don't want to let the side down. So so I'm reading continually in order to kind of keep up with these
Sure.
other guys who are very, very capable nutritionists. Connor is a behaviorist and nutritionist, and Brendan is a practitioner, homeopath, and nutritionist, and together we've formed this strange alliance where we kind of um, we discuss serious subjects, but we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Oh,
Okay, so
yeah.
it's kind of light, but we're discussing some really chunky stuff,
Yeah.
which is nice, and people seem to like it. You know,
Yeah.
it's you learn something, have a laugh, and have three different opinions in just a short period, just 45 minutes. And we have guests on. We've just had Rita Hogan, who is her book. Where's her book? Oh, I took it downstairs. So Rita Hogan is a US herbalist, holistic herbalist, and she was on Tuesday, and she's just brilliant. It's just totally inspiring. So if anybody is interested in herbs, jump into Raw Pet Medics on Facebook Live. We record them, so you can see them on our Raw Pet Medics Facebook Live. So please do jump into that. I'm looking around all over the place here, Sarah. So please, Katie, sorry. So do reel me in.
I'm going to reel you in. I'm going to reel you in. Okay, so really specific, and this might not kind of go hand in hand with what you do, but what types of are there health issues that you specialize in treating with the holistic methods or food or nutrition that you use? I'm not really entirely sure how to word that to you, but I think you get the idea of the question there.
Sure. I do a lot of I'm just going to change. Hopefully that will improve the audio. I do mainly gut problems and skin problems. And skin problems is can be anywhere on the body, obviously, but is often ears and rears and feet. Dogs with
Wow.
itchy areas of the body. Do a lot of gastroenterology, talking to people about diet and how to improve nutrition, to improve gut health, which can then reduce body inflammation, which can help many conditions actually.
Okay, yeah, cool. I mean, I'll make the assumption that you see.
Sorry, I missed that. I'm trying to be clever and change things this end. There you go. I've got you back. Here
You got me back?
Sorry, you were saying.
So I make the assumption that you may see a fair few Dachshunds in practice.
We do see quite a lot of Dachshunds. They're not renowned for having gut problems, but they do get gut problems, obviously. More kind of musculoskeletal. I used to do a lot of acupuncture, so I saw lots of Dachshunds, as you can imagine. But yeah, I do here and there. I see Dachshunds. It's often kind of inappetence issues. Dog doesn't like the food, but they, as much as any, will get problems with skin and gut, but they're not overrepresented. So yeah, I do see.
And I suppose I kind of had that bit of bias because that is my world. So obviously I don't work with anything other than Dachshunds. So I do obviously see quite a lot that come in with skin problems, ear problems, feet problems. Like you say, well, exactly what you said there, skin, ears, and rears, which that would make perfect sense. So if you can, and it's okay if it's kind of dog generic, can you tell us if there's connection between diets and illness, say yeast infections, skin issues, joint, back issues?
Sure. It's if
I appreciate that's quite broad.
well, if we really step back, it all comes down to inflammation. Okay, so if you're eating a diet that doesn't chime with your gut, doesn't chime with your microbiome, that means your gut is going to be unhappy, and that will manifest in inflammation of the gut, which will then impede nutrients coming into your system. You can get kind of leaky gut. So the cells lining the gut are one cell thick, and they should interdigitate like this, each cell, so that you've got a seal there, so that the body dictates what molecules, what nutrients can get through and what can't. Yeah, it's logical because you don't want food in your bloodstream. So it's supposed to dictate. But what happens is if you're if your gut becomes unhappy, you get this kind of detachment. And glyphosate, for example, is a pesticide which is in most food these days, unfortunately, even organic, to be honest. It has a definite effect like this. There was a paper that came out a few years ago saying that 81% of Americans have got glyphosate in their urine.
Wow.
People, humans. Okay. So
Wow.
if you think of the quality of food that goes into humans and then compare that with the quality of food going into dogs, which is unfortunately worse
Hmm.
in many cases, it's likely that 81% of dogs or more are exposed to glyphosate, especially these high cereal diets. People will, all kibble diets are very high in cereal. They can be, up to 60% cereal, and cereals are sprayed with glyphosate as a herbicide. But even if it's an organic field, uh, many farmers will use glyphosate as a desiccant to dry the crop before they store it. Yeah. So wheat, for example, yeah, it's an
It's not
organic.
perishable. Yeah.
Use a desiccant, and therefore this lovely organic wheat is contaminated with the glyphosate, which will cause leaky gut. And you can imagine that the top quality wheat will go to Hovis or whoever, and the second, third, and fourth grade wheat. That's what they're going to be using to make dog food. Okay, and therefore mycotoxins are a major problem. Mycotoxin is a toxin which is made from molds and fungus.
Wow.
Okay, and that's a big deal. Yeah,
Sounds delicious.
yeah, it is. There's some of the most they've got lovely names like necrotoxin, vomitoxin. There's some of the aflatoxin. There's some of the most toxic molecules on the planet.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Okay.
this is why I really try and keep people away from kibble and even canned food. Canned food tends to have quite a lot of cereal in it as well because cereal's cheap, meat
Yeah.
is expensive. So what are you going to fill your can with in order to maintain your profit margin to keep your shareholders happy? Yeah, you put cheap ingredients in the can.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do an awful lot of work to try and move people onto really good quality raw food. That would be the mainstay for me. And Daxies, they are very often kind of handbag dogs these days, unfortunately, but they were back in the day, as you know.
No,
No,
not.
yours aren't
Yeah.
probably,
No,
but
but
there's a
they're
lot
not.
of Daxies in a lot of Louis Vuitton bags walking
Sure.
up and down Kensington High Street. I promise
Sure.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And and the Dachshund is the badger
Yeah.
hound. Okay, so they were tough little buggers in originally, and now they've got this reputation for being, oh, I'm really fussy, and oh, I don't want to get my feet wet, and I don't want to run in the grass because might get my willy wet, and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, they are funny things.
Yeah. They are. They definitely are. They're very quirky when it comes to breeds.
Yeah, for sure.
So, one of my questions was around what is the problem with commercial kibble? Now, I feel like we just tapped
We
the.
kind of, we kind of,
I feel like
we
we got
did.
we tipped a bit of the iceberg there, but I feel
Sure.
that there's a bit more.
Oh, there's loads.
Um, like
Yeah.
give me some really good
Okay.
stuff that people are going to take away from this. So,
Okay.
what's the problem with commercial kibble?
Okay.
Kibble.
A few years ago, I tried to write a lecture on why I hate kibble. Okay. But every time I sat down to complete it, I found another thing. I got up to something like 39 reasons not to feed kibble. Okay. But let's just have a look at them. So the first and the most obvious one is if you talk to Royal Canin or Hills or whoever, uh, they will say this. I mean, Royal Canin even have a Dachshund
Mm-hmm.
food, yeah, which is the most ridiculous. It's like saying, blonde female people who live in Cornwall food. Yeah, give me a break. Okay, that's what they're doing.
Sure.
So
Yeah, yeah.
it is ridiculous. First and last,
Marketing.
it's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying. Um, so if you talk to the manufacturers, either Purina, who is Nestle, or Hills, who's Procter and Gamble, or Royal Canin, who is Mars, owned by Mars. Yeah.
Veterinary. Yeah.
This is a company who makes Mars bars. Do you
Yeah.
really think they care for the health of either you or your dog? They make Mars bars. Nothing wrong with the Mars bar, but
Nice and healthy for humans
they
as well.
do not, they do not promote health in the slightest.
Sure.
Okay. Anyway, back to where we were, and just okay. So if you talk to one of these big companies, they'll say, right, yes, as soon as the dog is no longer a junior, so about a year old or so, you can put them on the adult maintenance diet until they're a senior, whatever that means, and they will be on this single diet for their entire lifetime. Now, there are something like 93 million species of animal around the world, and only really dogs and cats and some farm animals eat exactly the same food for every meal for their entire for an entire life period. Okay, we don't do it to astronauts, we don't do it to people in jail, we don't do it to soldiers on the front line, and yet we do it to our beloved dogs. It makes absolutely no sense. Okay, so there you go. That's one really obvious version. The other thought is that if you get 100 Daxies lined up, they're going to have different requirements for magnesium or zinc or the level of protein that they really thrive at. And the thought that they can all just go onto the Royal Canin Daxi food, and that will be completely adequate for 100% of those dogs is totally ridiculous. Okay, so you get a bell-shaped distribution. So 80% of those dogs will probably be okay on that diet, but the outliers at the top end and the bottom end, yeah, at the top end they need extra zinc because of some metabolic quirk within them, and at the bottom end they're really sensitive to too much selenium. Okay, and you're feeding everybody exactly the same. If it was actually good for you, we'd feed children like this, wouldn't we? And you go to the uh, uh, to the doctor, and they will say you've got to eat healthy food, you've got to eat fresh, whole food, and what have you. And when you talk to the food manufacturers, they say, have a bag of this. That will do you for the whole of your life stage. Nonsense, absolute nonsense. Another reason. Tell me when to finish because I could give you 3 hours of this.
We're
Okay,
not going to have 3 hours of it,
so
but it's good. It's
I'll
good.
give
Keep
you.
going.
I'll give you one more. What? So kibble by definition are very high in carbohydrate. Some of them up to 60% carbohydrate. And what happens with carbohydrate is it's carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Yeah, carbohydrate. And when you break that down, you produce CO2. Okay, and therefore that has to be expelled by the body, and therefore they will have to breathe and pant more than the average dog. Okay, in order to get rid of the breakdown, that carbohydrate breakdown. And so therefore they will lose moisture, therefore they may be more prone to dehydration, for example. Also, you're feeding a creature who over 45 million years has evolved to eat juicy stuff like horse poo, like rats, like mice, like lizards, like goats, and yet we feed them on dehydrated food and expect them to have a really good hydration, a really good balance of of um, of their electrolytes within their body by eating this totally synthetic food. So there you go. Like I said, I could go
It's
on.
good.
I
It's
must do the video. I'm doing lots of videos this year. This is I've got a resolution to produce lots of videos this year. So I will try and finish the why I hate kibble
I
thing.
think I think that might be a long video. You might need to chop that one down.
It might be part one, part two, and part three. But
It's
yeah,
good.
I'd like to do it just for my own satisfaction. And we haven't even talked about you know um, the meat. They use rendering plants. Okay, now rendering plants is where the farmers will take dead, disease, dying stock, and they'll or lambs in a plastic bag, or just to get rid of bodies essentially. And what the guys at the rendering plant will do is they will take that plastic bag, say in lambing time, full of 3 or 4 lambs, and they'll chuck the entire thing, plastic and all, into this soup. Yeah, they boil these carcasses for hours and hours, until it all just turns to mush. They then dehydrate that, and that turns into a powder, and that's your meat and bone meal. Okay, which is the mainstay of most kibbles. Okay, plastic and all,
Gets better.
and ear tags.
Oh yeah, plastic ear tags. Yeah,
Sheep,
like,
and yeah,
yeah,
ear tags. The whole thing. It all goes in there, which is
great.
just yeah. So, um, I don't think kibble is a very good idea.
I mean, I'm hoping that people that are listening to this are going to at least question what they are feeding now. I'm a big advocate of education and awareness when it comes to the big brands, when it comes to the Marses, the Purinas, the pedigrees, the pedigrees and the Purinas and the Nestles of the monopoly,
Yeah.
and really just kind of opening people's eyes to what is very much there right in front of them, which I think you've just done a very grand job of telling us about. So when it comes to raw feeding,
Yeah.
I know you've got a really great video on your website because I've watched
Yeah.
it.
Raw feeding, the basics, does what it says on the tin. Yeah.
So very simply, what would be the top 3 things that owners need to know, and where would be the best place to start? So if you've always
Yeah.
fed kibble,
Yeah.
how would you then transition
Yeah.
and making sure that their tummies aren't too upset by
Great. It's a great question, Katie. And I think the thing to do is to have a chat. And I say this in the video, have a chat with some reputable raw food manufacturers. Find a company who you like the price point, you like the product, your dog is attracted to the product. Some dogs like chunky meat, some dogs like it a bit more mushy. And so and find the formula that works. Now, if you talk to those raw food manufacturers, the thing to talk to them about is a complete, where they've put meat and bone and organ and some veggies and maybe some herbs and a bit of kelp and a bit of fish oil and for omega-3 and what have you. They've done all the work, and it all comes usually in some kind of a paper or plastic packaging like this. The plastic is usually recyclable. Okay. So have a chat with those. The people. I mean, I've worked with most of the raw food manufacturers in the UK, but just off the top of my head, have a chat with Pro Dog Raw, have a chat with Paleo Ridge, have a chat with Benefit Natural, have a chat with Raw, have a chat with Natural Instinct, also Nutriment, also Honey's Real Pet Food. Yeah, the list goes on. But just off the top of my head, these are some really diligent manufacturers who's it's well worth having a chat with.
Yeah, and because you will experience this all the time, like I do. Like
Yeah.
people will come to you and they don't know what they don't know, and to be able to signpost somebody to, a brand to go and have a look at,
Yeah.
or a selection of brands, so you can make your own informed decision, then even better. No,
Totally. So have a chat with them and they will take you through the transition process. But the transition is pretty easy. I go through it in the video, but just very simply speaking, there's a number of methods. So the easiest is just cold turkey. Yeah, on a Sunday you feed kibble for the very last time, and on a Monday you start feeding the raw bish bosh. Okay, and you can do that with with pups, you can do it with adults and what have you. I would do that if I know that the dog has got a pretty robust constitution. Okay, if the dog has intolerances or has other disease processes, itchy problems, gut problems, what have you, I would maybe go a little more gently. And the way to go more gently is you've got a 4-day transition. So you go 1/4 raw on the first day, half raw on the second day, 3/4, and then fully raw. So you're just gradually moving it up. You can stretch a 4-day transition out to a 7 or 10-day transition if you like. If the owner's like, oh my God, I can't cope. You can do that by all means. You are feeding kibble and raw at the same time, which is not ideal, but it's only for a short period. So I think that's okay. Don't take 3 months over doing it, okay? Because that's just taking far too long. What most people say was, "Oh, I've just bought a bag of so and so," and so I say, right, well, if we do this over 10 days, you'll be able to get rid of the stuff that you've got, and bring in the raw. Okay, so that's the 4-day transition. The other transition, which I really like, is a kind of a cross between the two, which is called a doubling transition. So on day 1, you add 1 teaspoon of the new food. On day 2, you add 2. On day 3, you add 4. On day 4, you add 8. Yeah, so you're doubling it each time. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. So you go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 teaspoons until you've done. And by in that way, you start really, really small. Yeah, 1 teaspoon of food, of the new raw food, and but at the same, so if you're going to get problems, you will see it even from a teaspoon.
Sure.
But if you're okay on day 1, you go to day 2, and you build up quite quickly. Okay, so rather than taking 10 days to come on, you're going to be pretty much an entire bowl of raw within 5-6 days with most dogs.
Cool.
And that's good. It's the doubling method or the exponential method, if you want to sound clever.
It sounds pretty good to me.
Sounds good. Yeah, for sure.
So kind of moving on a bit more to the holistic vet kind of things. Now, Nick, I noticed in the back of your screen, you've got a lot of products and things going on in the background there.
You see those?
Well, yeah, I can. There's lots of what I would describe as medicine bottles for those that are listening, not actually viewing.
Yeah.
So talk to me about any products that you've got that would be, and I don't say specific to Dachshund owners, but maybe looking at more of the smaller breeds. What kind of
Sure.
stuff would you be either recommending or just?
Sure. There's one product that just comes straight to mind. I used a lovely product. You can find it on we've got a shop. It's called holisticvet.shop. And there's a few products that come to mind. Now, so the first one is called Gut Soothe. This is a Canadian product. It's a probiotic with prebiotics and anti-inflammatories. Okay, worth its weight in gold. Really, really lovely. It's by a lovely company called Adored Beast, who are super, super ethical. Okay, so it ticks lots of boxes. So Gut Soothe, absolutely wonderful. Check it out on the holisticvet.shop, and you jump into that. There's no dog for whom it is contraindicated. So if you're trying to build somebody up, Gut Soothe can be very useful. If you're trying to just settle their gut, then Gut Soothe can be very useful. If you're transitioning them and you just want kind of a probiotic chaperone to take you from food A to food B, then Gut Soothe is really useful. Adored Beast do other products as well,
Okay.
and it's definitely worth looking at them. The other product that I really like, okay, so that's a Canadian product. There's a US product that I use. It's called Eco Ears. Okay, check it out on the shop. And basically, it was pointed out to me about 6 years ago by a client, and it really is the most fantastic. It's an ear cleaner. But I also use it for therapeutics, for where you've got multi-resistant bacteria or you've got really nasty bugs in the ear. Okay, so it can be used on a routine basis, just to keep your ears clean, Or it can be used, oh my God, the dog's got custard pouring out of their ears, and we need to clean it up, kill the bad bugs and what have you. And so those that eco is absolutely brilliant. Then there's no nasty chemicals in it. It's a completely natural product. So absolutely brilliant. Love that. The last one that I'll bring is a product called Lucar, Lucaa. It's actually called Lucar with a plus at the end. Terrible name, amazing products. And what they have is they have skin probiotic product. Okay, they do one for ears to help change the microbiome in the ear towards a healthy balance of bugs to reduce the chance of getting infections and help the ear stay clean and function as well as possible and not be irritating. Okay, so and they do that, and they do another one called Dermocare, which is a spray for wounds and things, and they do another one called Allergy Free, which is for itchy dogs, and you spray it into the coat. They also do a shampoo. So brilliant. It's basically everybody knows about probiotics going into your gut. Yeah. Actimel or Yakult or those kind of things. These are probiotics that actually apply to the skin because you have, I have, Daxies have, we have a microbiome, this ecosystem on our skin, which is in beautiful balance all the time until you get sick, and then it can go out of balance. And these are ways that we bring things in. I would say though, if I'm dealing with skin problems or gut problems, then raw food is usually the foundation of that treatment.
As in to move them onto the raw food.
Onto the raw food. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Really interesting. Super interesting.
Yeah.
And in terms of, so I know we've touched on products for ears and the kind of the inner ear. One of our clients had a question for you around fur loss on half of the ear. So on both sides. So this Daxi has previously had ear infections, which she doesn't currently have, but now she started to lose the fur on the back of both of her ears.
Sure.
It's been suggested that it's environmental, but nothing has changed environmentally. Diet hasn't changed. She is raw fed.
Great.
Any suggestions?
Yeah, it's
Without
quite
steroids.
common. Yeah, it's kind of common with steroid with Daxies actually. The first question is it itchy or not? Yeah, because if it's itchy, you go down one route. You start thinking of allergies. You start thinking of infections. You start thinking of maybe mange. Yeah, some mange mites, things like that. Okay, so if it's not itchy, and they're usually not itchy with Daxies, you just get them and they're just losing hair. Sometimes you see it on whippets and what have you as well. Yeah, they just kind of lose hair for no good reason. So it can be hormonal. So the question would be, are they neutered? Yeah, we're moving away from just blanket neutering everybody. Yeah, boys and girls.
Yeah.
We are moving away from that now. There's been a lot of work over the last 10 years or so, which suggests that yes, you will prevent pyometra, but you will increase the risk of getting other disease, for example, osteosarcoma in dogs. If you're neutering early, and some places they're neutering at like 9 weeks of age, which I think is a crime. Yeah, absolute crime. So if you're neutering, then to do it, at least after the first season, when the dog is mature. However, try and not neuter. In Scandinavia and Germany, there are some countries who say it is illegal to neuter
I think
a dog.
I actually saw Sweden. Sweden have made it illegal to neuter.
Unless there's a medical reason. Yeah.
Unless medical, and to be honest, that's always my advice. So, like, I obviously being breed specific, there's a lot of papers that come out around IVDD. and other back issues as well. And
Yeah.
a lot of that to do with early neutering as well. So there are some good stats around not neutering. It's kind of more beneficial not to than it is to. Um, yeah, that's kind of where I stand with it as well. I'm very much let dogs be dogs, but I also think about that older generation of dog as well that we're not really doing any favors to.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
getting back to the question,
yes, yeah.
if they've been neutered, I think, having your ovaries removed very early in your life, that's going to change your essentially it's menopause. Yeah.
Yeah.
As it's like, imagine going through menopause when you're a teenager. That's essentially what we do, traditionally
Mhm.
with our dogs, with our Daxies, and they can get hormonal problems later on. So I would say this is if it's not itchy, I'd be thinking hormones, and if it is a hormonal thing, um, it's quite difficult using drugs to manipulate hormones, but homeopathics are very, very good for manipulating hormones. Um, uh, Cushing's disease, for example, is a hormone disease, too much cortisol in the blood,
Mhm.
and that will often respond very nicely to homeopathics.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'd be looking at hormones. If the dog is entire and is losing hair here, then that's pretty difficult one. I'd be making sure that the diet was a really good variety, that they're getting plenty of omega-3 in the diet, basically feeding the skin
Okay.
to try and improve skin health generally.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, I'm sure they'll find that super helpful. One of the other questions we had, Nick, was problematic anal glands.
Mm. Okay, anal
So
glands. Yeah,
how can we avoid this, reduce it
sure,
with diet, really,
sure.
since that's what we're looking for.
Okay, so the anal glands are there to mark the stool so that the ancient dog could mark their territory. Okay, this is Fred's patch, this is Daisy's patch, la la la. Okay, that's why you've got anal glands. They are kind of glorified sweat glands, and in the normal dog, every time the dog has a really good, firm but not constipated poo, there is a little expulsion of the material there. Okay, so there's a balance. If the dog is permanently slightly loose, I have a scale for stool. Okay, so 10 is a perfect sausage. Yeah, nicely cooked sausage. You can pick it up with two fingers. If and that's a 10. Okay, so my dogs generally are kind of nines and tens. Okay, if a dog goes down to say a 7 or a 6, yeah, the poo doesn't look too bad, but it's a bit squidgy. You're not having that expulsive squeeze effect, and thus the anal glands can fill, and therefore the treatment there is to empty the glands to allow them to um, be less full so that when the stool comes through, you can have that expulsive effort. Yeah. And if they're a bit plugged, you need to unplug that by doing by squeezing the anal gland. So the first thing is look at the quality of the stool. Okay. So if your dog is permanently at a 7, that's your problem. It's not the anal glands. The anal glands are secondary to the slightly poor stool. And if they do have a poor stool, then you need to start looking at the diet would be the main thing. Yeah, if they're a bit chicken sensitive, that drops them down to a 7. You remove chicken, whoop, they go up to a 10.
Yeah.
Wheat, beef, and chicken are the main allergens that I find if the dog is having a problem with skin or gut. Okay.
Yeah.
Coming back to anal glands, the other thing is if the skin generally is inflamed, then even if the poos are perfect, you can get inflamed anal glands. Yeah, because the ears are inflamed, the bum is itchy, the feet are inflamed. Okay, and if that perianal area is more inflamed than it should be, then the anal glands, which are supposed to produce, half a cc of material every day, they'll start producing 3 cc's of material every day. Okay, and suddenly they're really big, they're really really uh inflamed, and they can become infected, and that is a super painful, horrible
Yeah.
thing for dogs to go through. So look at general level of inflammation. Look at quality of stool. Really is the way to go. The normal dog does not need their anal glands emptied. Okay, so if you're going more than twice a year, then you need to look at other elements, the diet
What else is
primarily.
happening there for them?
Yeah,
Okay,
totally.
fine. And
Yeah,
if it,
yeah,
so interesting that you mentioned there around chicken, beef, and cereal being the big
yeah.
kind of contributors there, because
Mm.
this is something that we do have a conversation with quite a lot around. Um, I will just have conversations, and I'm not a nutritionist, but it kind of stands out quite a lot.
Yeah,
The dog is solely eating a chicken based or a beef based
yeah.
or a
That's
cereal
that's a
based.
good point. Actually, I'm going to say that that variety is key to nutrition, full stop. But very much so, yeah. Because for example, if you're eating Royal Canin Daxi, that's it. You're on that for life. Just whatever the protein is, that's you for life. Which I think is just anathema to good health. Um, uh, Within a raw food diet, you should be on at least three different proteins, ideally six or more, but at least three different proteins. And if you can have one of the proteins with forelegs, one of the proteins with feathers, and one of the proteins with say a fish type protein, that would be
Yeah,
really good, because then you've got different um, sourcing. Yeah.
cool.
So, and chicken can be great. It's got to be well sourced, okay? Because there's a lot of rubbish chicken
Yeah,
out there. But chicken, there's a lot of very healthy dogs who can eat chicken, can eat beef with absolutely no problem. I would try and avoid cereals where possible, though. Yeah, and treats. For me, treats, don't use Bonios, don't use Schmackos, all these absolutely rubbish things. They are absolute
what about
crap.
the big manufacturing companies?
Do not touch them. Okay. Um, what you need for treats is just dehydrated meat. Yeah. So
Sure.
so if your dog's good with venison, you just get venison, 100%, full stop. That's it.
Yep.
Okay. Forget multi ingredient treats are yesterday's news. Forget
Yeah.
it. Okay. Single protein, well sourced, just one ingredient in the treat. Bish bosh. Dogs love them. The other really great treat is dried sprats. They're really
Yeah.
good. I love them. Yeah, full of minerals and full of omega threes. So get them fresh, regularly, and they are just a superfood. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Good stuff. And so we've spoken a lot about raw feeding and meat and variety of meat, but what about adding in anything like vegetables
Yeah,
or berries
yeah,
or and
yeah.
again, would that be variety or would that
Yeah.
be?
No, that is variety. Yeah. In the video, we go through this. So uh, once you've found your feet with food, and you've got a company who's done it for you for 6 months, 12 months or so, and if you want to then go into DIY, what we'd be looking at is we've got the food bowl in front of us here, 85-ish% of the bowl will be meat and bone and organ. Okay, you can buy 80-10-10 mixes, and so that would be the most of the bowl. To which so this is the remaining 15%. So some lightly steamed veggies, yeah, anything green, anything seasonal, hopefully organic, is really really good. And if you can mush those down in a blitzer, in a blender, that's really good. Okay, so you add it as a um like a smoothie. Okay,
Mhm.
and to that you can add nuts, herbs, and seeds. Okay, the nuts ideally you would soak them overnight to reduce any anti-nutrients. So NHS, nuts, herbs, seeds. Okay, you can put those in your smoothie. Lovely, great. You put a bit of spirulina here and there, not spirulina, loads of it for life, because remember, variety is the key.
Mhm.
And you would add an omega-3 source there as well. I love krill oil. Also, you can get mackerel, sardine oil, and what have you. We do a lovely range called Nutravet, and within that they have their uh, sardine oil is called NutraCoat, which is really nice sardine oil. So it's a small fish. It's low, zero mercury,
Mhm.
which is really important. High in omega-3. You know what? Why fish have omega-3 in their blood? They use it as an antifreeze. Yeah, they're swimming around in the Arctic,
Reason.
and to stop their blood going solid in their vessels, they have this. They're very high in omega-3. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing what you learn, isn't it?
That's great. Yeah. Really clever. Really clever.
How the world evolves.
Yeah, for
I love
sure.
it. I love it, Nick. Like, is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners that we haven't kind of marked off?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I think the most important thing is if you have even the slightest inclination to go for raw, absolutely do it. Yeah, there's nothing to lose by just ringing up ProDog Raw or Paleo or Benefit or whoever it is and just saying, I'm really terrified. Please, can you help me go through this?
Mhm.
Okay, just do it. Yeah, there is nothing to lose and all to gain. I did a survey of 75 vets all around the world in 2014, and one of the questions was, what percentage of dogs moving from healthy dogs on kibble moving to raw, what percentage of those will you see an improvement in? And the answer was 86%. Yeah. So these are
Wow.
dogs who are perfectly happy on their kibble. You put them onto raw food and teeth get whiter, breath gets cleaner, poos improve, skin improves, ears improve, level of energy improves. White dogs with
Yeah,
with
the
um
tear
with
mark.
with marks on their eyes
Yeah.
improves. Okay, so it's a really simple message. Go raw, get that variety. It turns food into something really joyful. Yeah, if you're feeding kibble, it's like plink plink, and then you go and do something else. There's
Mhm.
just no joy whatsoever. And somewhere in your brain, you're saying, this is synthetic food, and I'm giving it to my beloved dog. Okay, something in your brain, I promise, because everybody says the same, which is why people put, bits of meat and what have you on the kibble, because they know it's rubbish. All right. So
And
I would say go raw. Absolutely go raw.
and Nick, what would you say to and this is might be a bit controversial, but I'm going to ask it
Yeah.
anyway. So
Yeah.
what would you say to the vets that are still scaremongering owners that go into the vets that are feeding raw, that
Yeah.
the vets are, I'm going to say anti-raw, they're scaremongering
Yeah. Plenty of
with
them. Yeah.
salmonella, you're going to get
Yeah.
salmonella, you're going to, destroy your kids because you've got salmonella in your house.
Yeah,
What would you
which
say?
is rubbish. Which is rubbish.
What would you
Yeah,
say?
I'd say, learn about something before you talk about it. Yeah, we're not taught it at vet college,
Mhm.
and whichever food company the practice is dealing with, they will have reps coming to them every 3 or 4 months, going, "This is the best thing since sliced bread, and raw will kill dogs." Okay,
Yeah.
and there's no great science to demonstrate it. In fact, if we got all the paper, all the articles, all the research papers, okay, demonstrating that kibble is is better than raw, okay, and we put them on this side of the scales, and we got all the research papers saying demonstrating that raw is better than kibble, it would go clunk,
Yeah.
because there are no papers demonstrating. Okay, I'm going to say this again. There are no scientific papers demonstrating that synthetic, industrial, manufactured, high cereal, ultra processed kibble food is healthier than real raw food. There are none. And there are dozens of papers and more coming out every year, showing that raw food is healthier. Surprise, surprise,
Shock.
surprise, surprise. Yeah, so go raw, enjoy it. Your life will never be the same, and the dog will thank you on bended knee. I promise you.
Awesome. And very lastly, Nick,
Yeah.
people do want to get a consultation with you, if they want to find you, find out more
Sure.
about you, get in contact with you, how do they do that?
It's really easy.
Shameless plug.
Holisticvet.co.uk. Holisticvet.co.uk. I do publish stuff on Instagram. I've been shadow banned at the moment because I put some scientific papers that the fact checkers didn't like. Okay, I put a lot of controversial stuff. So if you want to follow me, I'm Holistic Vet UK, Holistic Vet UK on the Insta. But you may not be able to get through. Or I think what happens is actually if you apply to follow, they'll say this person has put posts which have been deemed to be incorrect by the fact checkers. The fact checkers have got 2 O levels between them, and I think I'm a little bit more qualified, and yet I'm getting chucked off Instagram because some dork in Iowa thinks that my post is non-scientific. Yeah. So, but that's the way of the world. I'm just rolling with it.
And on that note, I think we should stop there before we get too
before
controversial.
Zuckerberg, checks us off. Yeah, exactly. Hello.
Awesome. Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. I'm
great,
sure
Katie.
will find that super helpful. And take care and look after yourself.
Bless you. Thanks a lot. I've really enjoyed it. Take care. And go well with the Daxies. That's really, really, really great.
Thanks.
I hope you've taken something away from this podcast, and let us know by leaving us a review of what you like or what you didn't. And if you can, then please subscribe to our channel, and that way you won't miss out on any of the next episodes. I look forward to hearing from you. Goodbye for now.